Okay, ready to go. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock, a little bit after 11, so we are going to get started. Welcome. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in the Environmental Support Division here at the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. And I'll be facilitating today's meeting on the proposed administrative Part 41 rule revisions, specifically 2024-52 EQ sewerage systems. With me today is Phil Argeroff, Alyssa Sarber, and Charlie Hill from the Water Resources Division, and they represent management and staff for Eagle today here. Oops. Just to let everybody in person here know, we are also broadcasting this public meeting via Zoom, and so for those of us joining us by Zoom, I just want to let you know that all lines are muted, and we're recording this public hearing and meeting just like we do all of ours, and you can find it up on our YouTube channel probably later this afternoon or tomorrow, first thing. I'll get my slides to advance, that'd be good. Okay, there we go. All right, so first we'll begin with a short informational presentation to describe the proposed rule changes. Then we're going to move into the hearing portion of today's meeting, where we will receive public comments from all of you. At the end of today's meeting, we will discuss how we will take your comments and describe the next step after today's meeting. And so just so you know, we will take comments from people here in person as well as people online. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Phil, Alyssa, and Charlie for the presentation.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
Well, it's good to be here today. We're going to talk a lot about Part 41, but everything we do in Water Resources Division goes back to protecting designated uses. So we look at our Great Lakes, our inland lakes, our rivers and streams, 6.5 million acres of wetlands, 74,000 acres of coastal dunes, and groundwater and drinking water. What's really important in the state of Michigan too is groundwater serves about 40% of the population as a drinking water source. And we also protect drinking water, source water for surface waters. Okay, one of the things that we're going to do under Part 41 and Part 31, Part 31 is our discharge rules, our permanent rules. Part 41 are the changes that we're going to make today. But one of the important things that we do under both those is make sure that we can issue NPDES permits for municipal facilities. But one area where we have lagged on issuance of permits are tributary collection systems to a regional wastewater treatment plant. So all our collection systems must be inspected and maintained. Some haven't been. Collection systems have capacity restrictions as we go through in Part 41, either internal restrictions or contract capacity restrictions to discharge to the regional system. But about 500 of our collection systems throughout the state of Michigan have not been covered by an NPDES permit. And it's important for us to be able to help work with those facilities in order to control capacity restrictions and asset management requirements. Currently, we react reactively to SSOs that occur in tributary collection systems. And this has caused us to have to enforce on some of these, and the enforcement on some of these takes us a lot of time, and it also takes finances and a lot of money from the regulated community. So what we're trying to do is use a more progressive route by having folks comply with a collection system general permit in order to use our progressive compliance system in order to move through instead of having an administrative consent order. Oh, sorry, one more thing. High wet weather flows. There's a lot of regional systems that tributary collection systems that aren't permitted contribute high wet weather flows to these regional facilities. So we're going to try to help those regional systems and help reduce flows in some of those tributary collection systems to reduce flows over time. Okay, so the benefits of coverage. One, I talked a little bit about it. It's going to address SSOs under an NPDES permit and potentially not under administrative consent order. So we can use our progressive compliance enforcement through this collection system general permit. We can address high flows at some of these regional wastewater treatment plants by reducing these flows at the contributing collection systems to help on some of these regional high flows. And we can also ensure that important asset management programs, capacity restrictions, flexible programs to set inspection frequencies and fiscal sustainability requirements are specified in this permit. So one of the changes that's going to help us in Part 41 is operator certification, and we're going to talk a little bit about that soon. These permits are going to help address asset management, have a prohibition against SSOs, look at capacity restrictions internally and also contract capacity restrictions, look at flexibility for inspection frequency, and have one report that's required after a 3-year period. Proposed implementation, we're going to issue certificates of coverage off of this general permit in a 5-year plan from 2025 to 2029. The first facilities we're going to look at are contributing municipalities at regional wastewater treatment plants that currently blend. There's only 2 facilities left in the state of Michigan that currently have an authorized blend. One is Genesee County Ragnon, and the other is the Downriver Wastewater Treatment Plant. Both have authorized blends in the permit, but schedules ultimately to eliminate those blends. That means that some of the contributing municipalities at these 2 facilities contribute high flows to these wastewater treatment plants. Another that we're going to look at are contributing municipalities next that contribute to SSOs. These sanitary sewer overflows are either within the current collection system or they contribute downstream to an SSO. And they also may contribute to basement backups. And then the rest will be the remaining contributing municipalities. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. So let's talk a little bit about the actual rules development. Everything that Phil was discussing was kind of on the permit side of things, and it does go hand in hand. But specifically, when we were looking at developing the rules, we had some tasks to complete. And so we had some stakeholder involvement, 18 to 20 at any point in time, municipal officials from small and large organizations. We had some private organizations, and of course, Eagle staff that were on this team. And we had 18 well, they weren't in person. It was during COVID. We had 18 meetings from 2020 to 2022. And we held most of those virtually. And then we've also had conversations via email going back and forth on development of what these classifications going to look like for the new collection system, the proposed collection system, facility classifications, and corresponding operator certification requirements. And so these folks helped us come up with what do these levels look like? What does corresponding education and experience requirements look like for certification? And we also started with just kind of a base level, exam question and answer bank for if everything goes through, where does Eagle start with putting some really solid exams together. So this is the work that we did with this group. And really we've been working on it for 5.5 years now, which is a long time, but it's been nice because the group has been able to stay together and keep at it. So what did we come up with? So C1 through C4 is the proposed classification levels that we're looking at. So C1 being the highest, C4 being the lowest. And because this is within the Part 41 rule set, we decided that it was smart to mirror these classifications off number of connections for these collection systems, similar to how wastewater treatment plants within the same rule set are classified based on population of an area. So similar but different. And as you can see here, if a system has 50 or less connections, it's actually not going to be part of this. So I don't think we've got a ton of those in the state, but 50 or less would be exempt from this, from having these requirements. So 25,000 or more, those are going to be our highest level. And then as you can see, in between here, there's different numbers to meet some different sizes of the systems that we have here in the state. Additionally, similar to how the wastewater treatment plant classifications work, if there is a community that, you know, is more, if there's more stuff going on, it's not just gravity sewer, and there's a reason to classify it higher than what is just based on connections. Eagle may do that as well, dependent on that community and what they're dealing with. So what does it look like as far as the proposed requirements to write the exams? For the C1, we are proposing that a person have a 4-year degree in science, engineering, or a related field. They must possess the lower level certification and have 3 years of acceptable experience in the C2 or higher collection system, or a person could have a 2-year degree in the same fields and have 4 years of experience in a C2 or higher collection system. And also they must possess that class C2 certificate. So these are going to be sequential, as far as you must start at C4 and work your way up to C1 if you are in a community that needs a C1, let's say. Again, similar to how it works for the municipal wastewater treatment plant classifications, the D through the A. This is how that's set up. So for the C2, we're proposing that a person have 1 year of college or its equivalent in science and engineering or related field. They must have a C3 certificate and have 3 years of acceptable operational experience in a C3 or higher collection system. Also similar to the municipal wastewater certification classifications, this education component is written black and white in the rules just because that's, you know, that's how we need to write things out. But we also have a sub rule within this rule set that allows for us to substitute education or experience as needed for folks that may not have a formal college degree. And so that's how we have folks that write the Class A and Class B wastewater treatment plant exams and have done that for years. And we propose doing something very similar here for the C1 and C2 folks. If they don't have the formal degree, we will come up with a policy with our board of certification as to how much semester hour equivalent classes are equivalent to the college that's written here. So we will have that as well to work with folks. C3 and C4, the lower mid-level certifications and classifications, just 2 years of experience at the C3 and then having the C4 certificate. And then for the C4, you just need to have high school or its equivalent and have 6 months of acceptable experience in a C4 or higher classification. So these two, no education other than high school and just hands-on experience within a system. In addition to the collection system certifications, we are also proposing a retention treatment basin classification and certification requirement for those that are in the state, because we don't currently have that. And so we are recommending to have completed high school or its equivalent and then 1 year of experience operating an RTB and actively participated in not less than 4 discharge events. So again, when we came up with this, we worked with the group, but we also worked with some of our staff that have that work on a committee as well for RTBs, and they helped us formulate like what would make sense for classification here. So we have some questions as far as, when Phil was discussing the permits and those are issued and then a facility gets classified, how do you get someone certified so that they can comply with that permit? And so we do have some language in the rules that's already existed for lagoon systems. So previously the L2 and L1 classifications didn't exist, and that's something that came over time. And so during that period, they came up with language in Part 41 for restricted or initial certification to kind of, grandfathering is not quite the right term, but to sort of grandfather in the operators that were already working at those facilities. And then they were, classified as they needed to be. And so similarly, we've got some language that we've proposed to get people certified kind of in that initial rung of getting classified. And so it's also working with many of these communities do not have wastewater treatment plants. The contributing municipalities don't at all. And so those operators that have worked for 5 or more years are able to take the exam that they need and not go through that sequence for the first couple of years, or they get 2 times to do that, I should say. So that actually takes place though, that's up to 5 years after the initial facility classification. And so really the long story short here is that we have a plan in place to work with communities so they don't feel like they need to panic to get what they need. They also don't feel like they need to completely, you know, if they're a C1 and they feel like they need to then take all the exams to get up to what they need within 5 years. That's what this plan is for, is to not stress them out, get them what they need, and then go from there. So for administrating exams, we also have come up with renewal requirements as well. So we do plan on administering the exams, you know, if this all goes through in May and November when we do the current municipal exams. But in addition to that, we do plan on having some proposed CEC requirements for these operators so that they can stay, you know, trained up. And that was another thing that we heard from our stakeholder group, that it was important that collection system operators also continue to get training, just like wastewater treatment plant operators do. So we've also proposed training hours for the RTB certification as well, because that is in its own thing, very specific as to how that's maintained. And we're proposing to have 3-year renewal cycles for these certificates, just like we do for the rest of the wastewater certs. So if someone becomes certified, their certificate is then good for 3 years, and they have that 3-year cycle to then earn this corresponding, you know, these corresponding training requirements. So in addition to proposed rules, anytime you open up a rule set, you also need to look and see if there's a need to rescind anything that may be duplicative or taking place in a statute somewhere. And in this case, since it's been a while since we've opened these up, there are some duplicative rules and some duplicative language. So we're proposing to rescind some language regarding putting on hearings under this rule set, because it's duplicative to what already takes place in the Administrative Procedures Act and how we go about hosting hearings, should anyone request one. And there's also additional rules in another rule set pertaining to contested cases and declaratory rulings that we do already as a division. So we can rescind the rules that exist under Part 41 for this. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Charlie.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. So in addition to the facility classification and operator certification requirements in Part 41, there are other areas of Part 41, including construction permit, permitting, and operations of systems for public wastewater systems. So while the operator certification requirements and the facility classification needs for collection systems are really what opened up the rules for potential updates, we also took that opportunity to look at the rest of the rules and find where there might need to be updates as well. And so we found that there's some need for definitions as well as some other permit rule modifications in the permitting realm. But this is just a summary of the proposed definition additions and revisions. So we've added definitions for combined sewer system and retention treatment basin, primarily to support the facility classification updates. But then I think what I'm here to really talk about is the updates to definitions regarding public and how we define that in Part 41. So we've added a definition for public, as well as revised definitions for sewer system and sewerage system. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail here. Currently Part 41 rules only reference that regulations of Part 41 pertain to systems that are actually used or intended for use by the public. And so since about 2001, when we established a public use definition memo here in Eagle, or DEQ at the time, we've been operating under that. And essentially that memo defines systems serving the public as serving more than one owner, or and those systems that are owned by a governmental agency that serves any other owner. And so the proposed added and revised definitions will help further clarify this public use concept in the rule. And so some of the proposed changes would be, again, adding a definition for public under Rule 3I, meaning one or more persons that discharge sewage from its sewer lead into a public sewer or sewerage system. And then adding this more than one owner concept to both the sewer system and sewerage system definitions that already exist in Part 41. And then I mentioned that there's a couple of other permit rule modifications that we looked at in terms of updating. One is addressing non-governmental ownership of systems that are intended for use by the public. And then revising language regarding minor modifications for designs that were already approved and permitted. And I'll get into those both a little bit more in detail. So non-governmental ownership, there's some background there. There was I guess what's termed the Lake Isabella ruling back in 2003. At that time, there was a rule in Part 41, Rule 33.4, that required resolution from a local unit of government to assume O&M or operation and maintenance responsibility of any non-governmentally owned systems if the owner fails to provide adequate services. At that time, it was challenged in court by a developer, and the courts ruled that that rule was not conforming with the legislative intent of Part 41 and cited as arbitrary and capricious. Again, citing that Eagle couldn't require owners to obtain this local unit of government resolution, and that Eagle didn't have authority to force the local unit of government to pass such a resolution. So in response to that, DEQ at the time, again, Eagle, under Rule 55 of Part 41, which gives Eagle the authority and responsibility to ensure that any public sewerage systems are properly operated and maintained. We then developed this policy to address non-governmentally owned sewerage systems. And again, establishing reasonable assurances that essentially provide something similar to what a public utility would provide in terms of what these private utilities have in legal documents. So establishing O&M responsibilities and legal documents, essentially establishing a private utility, and then providing adequate funding for operation and maintenance and repair and replacement. And so again, I mentioned we developed a policy, Water Resource Division 010, to establish those requirements, and have been operating for a number of years under that. So what some of the proposed rule revisions would do was add requirements essentially that are equivalent to our policy 010. Again, so that anytime there is a privately owned or non-governmentally owned utility that serves the public, they would have proof or demonstrate proof that each parcel served by the system is aware of their responsibilities in terms of participating in the utility. And then either, again, a resolution by the local unit of government would suffice. But if the local unit of government declined that they would take over responsibility, then operations plans would need to be demonstrated, as well as those financial assurances. So again, I guess the takeaway here is that Eagle already operates under a policy that essentially is going to be taking those requirements and putting them to rule. And then finally, there is a minor modification rule in Part 41, Rule 42. So upon reviewing the rules, we noted that the statute, Part 41, which allows verbal approval of any modifications to permitted projects to be submitted by a written request and needs approval by Eagle. The rule, for some reason, when it was established back in '94, it allowed for minor modifications to be approved without Eagle notification or approval. So essentially, this proposed revision to Rule 42 would better align the statute and rule to make sure that those minor modifications do get some level of notification approval. That's it for the proposed rule changes. So we'll open it up to comment.
Okay, I'll take it over.
Great, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Phil, Charlie, and Alyssa. Again, my name is Jim Ostrowski, the Environmental Support Division here at Eagle. We are now going to start the public hearing portion of today's meeting. And I'll be the hearings officer for the hearing and for the proposed Part 41 administrative rule revisions, specifically 2024-52 EQ sewer systems. I'm going to have Alyssa go ahead and read the official hearing statement, and it's kind of long, but I'll let you, if you want to read it from there, you can. Go ahead.
Happy to. So in order for the rules to be adopted, the department must follow the procedures set forth in the Administrative Procedures Act, Act 306 of 1969 as amended. The purpose of today's hearing is to give anyone interested an opportunity to provide information that the department may use to make changes to the proposed rules. We are here today to receive public input on these proposed changes. The notice of this public hearing was published in 3 newspapers of general circulation: the Lansing State Journal, the Mining Journal, and the Oakland Press on March 25th, 2025. The public hearing was also posted to Eagle's environmental calendar on March 5th, 2025. Copies of the notice of public hearing, regulatory impact statement, and the proposed rules have been made available on the Michigan Office of Administrative Hearings and Rules, MOAR, website. Please understand the purpose of the hearing today is to provide an opportunity to receive and listen to your comments only. The hearings process does not allow for open discussion or questions about the proposed rules. Eagle staff will not be responding to questions or comments during the hearing. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will become a part of the information the department will consider when finalizing the proposed rules. The public comment period for the proposed rules ends on April 30th, 2025 at 5 p.m. If you have written comments or materials that you would like to submit, please email them to egle-wrd-opcert@michigan.gov by 5 p.m. on April 30th. Following the public hearing, we will review the written and verbal comments received during the comment period. Once this review is done, an agency report will be prepared. The agency report will explain any additional changes Eagle may make to the proposed rules as a result of comments received. It will also summarize who is in favor of the draft rules and who is opposed to them. The proposed rules and the agency report will be submitted to the MOAR and the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, JCAR. JCAR is a bipartisan legislative committee made up of 5 House and 5 Senate members that provide legislative oversight of the rulemaking process. The agency report will be available on MOAR's website or by contacting the WRD office. Once approved, the rules will be filed with the Secretary of State and will take effect immediately after filing. You can follow along the rulemaking process step by step by going to MOAR's website.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. So just for the record, just want to make a note that here in attendance, we got about 11 people here, including Eagle staff. Also with me today is Joel Roseberry with our division. Joel, how many people online do we have?
25.
25 people online, very good. All right, so to ensure today's hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we're going to follow these steps. I've got everybody that wanted to make a comment here in person has filled out one of these comment cards, and I'm going to go through those first. When I call your name up here, if you would, please come up to the desk and say your name and any organization that you might represent, and then you can begin your comment. Okay, each person will have 4 minutes to make their comment today. I'll be tracking it on my phone. That's why I'm looking on my phone here. After we get through the people here in the audience that would like to make a comment, we are going to open it up to people online that would like to make a comment. And up on my screen here, I've got an indication how you do that. You can click the raise hand icon in Zoom to make a comment, and Joel will let me know if your hand is raised, and I will call on you and we will unmute your mic so you can make a comment. You can also submit your comment in the Q&A box if you don't want to voice your comment. If you do that, though, make sure you type the word comment first. Write the word comment, then enter your comment, and I'll have Joel read that off verbally here. Also, if you're on the phone, do we have anybody on the telephone today? One person on the phone. If you're on the phone and you'd like to make a comment, hit the #2 button on your phone, hit #2, and that will indicate that you want to make a comment to us. Okay, when all comments have been completed, we'll ask if anyone else would like to make a statement, and anybody else hasn't made a statement and wants to, you can certainly do that then. Just a reminder, each person will have 4 minutes to make their comments, and we will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time frame. If need be, we'll indicate when your time has ended. All right. So we'll get started then. And again, probably should have you guys introduce yourselves because we didn't officially do that. So I'm gonna have you guys each go through and introduce yourselves and your title.
Sure, that's a good idea for the record. My name's Alyssa Sarver. I'm the wastewater certification and exam specialist for the Water Resources Division at Eagle.
Charles Hill, wastewater engineering specialist for Water Resources Division at Eagle.
And Phil Ardroff, an assistant division director in WRD.
All right, thank you. And so just a reminder, they're just here to listen, take notes in your comments. So they're not going to be answering any questions or anything like that. Okay. All right, so the first person that indicated they want to make a comment is Sally Duffy. Sally, you can come right up and remember to state your name and any organization you represent. And you can get started when you're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Sally Duffy, Hubble Roth and Clark Consulting Engineers out of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I think I'll go ahead and just submit written comments. That might be easier because we have until April 30th to do that, is my understanding, to the email account. Most of the comments are just suggestions on tweaking some language and definitions. So, yeah, I think at this point it might be better to follow up with an email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sally. And it will be showing up on the screen again, how you make comments other ways too. Next up is Jacob Mitchell. So come on up, Jacob.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Jacob Mitchell. I'm the lead collections operator for Amhog out of Genoa Township. First, I want to thank Greg and everybody else who put their hard work in to get this off the ground. I'm very excited to talk about something that's going to make a big difference in our industry, the new collection system operator certification. It isn't just another requirement box to check. It's a real step forward. By setting clear standards for training and knowledge, we're bringing more consistency, accountability, and professionalism to the work that we do. Certified operators have always played a key role in keeping our systems safe and running smoothly, but now with the new certification, we're raising the bar even higher. And what's the biggest benefit? It makes our employees more valuable. It gives them more tools and training to do their jobs better and safer. It turns a job into a career path. And for employers, it means a stronger, more skilled team that is ready to handle whatever comes next. So let's not see this as just another requirement. Let's use it as an opportunity to grow and invest in our people and to build a better future for our industry and the communities that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jacob. All right, next person here is Greg Totora. Greg, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Greg Tatera. I'm the utility director with the Amhog Sewer and Water Authority. I look back at my notes, and the very first meeting we had on this was December 3rd of 2019 upstairs. I remember that well when we first brought this up. And just to kind of highlight based on what Jake said is, this was born from our employees coming to us and saying, we have a specific division that's just collection systems. And they came to us saying, like, well, we want to be treated the same as the guys that get distribution licenses and the guys that have wastewater operator licenses. And, in our group, it was always seen that the collection guys were kind of like the, not the most deserved position. And people always wanted to get out of that because they could advance more in distribution and then go to a bigger system to work and things like that. So really, this was born out of that request I received from my employees. As an employer, I want to speak more from an employer standpoint here as to what it means for us. So it gives us an ability to treat employees equally across the board. So if I have collection operators, water distribution operators, and plant operators, now each of them have a very similar collection path. So I can base my, rates of pay and things like that on advancing in those different categories. It increases the knowledge of our staff. Our staff now will be more knowledgeable, which will hopefully decrease our liability that we have. I view our collection systems as one of our biggest sources of liability, from sewer backups to SSOs, and it hopefully will reduce the liability we have with that. It provides standardization across the industry. So if we do have to hire or do a recruitment for somebody, I know I'm getting somebody with a certain base level of knowledge if I hire that person in the future, if they come with a certain certification. It'll improve the management of our assets. The millions and millions of dollars our residents have paid to build the infrastructure we have, and improves that management of that lifetime of that management. And then it helps me with succession plan. As a director, I can look now for people who are advancing their career and look to them to become the leaders of the future and leave our system in a better place than I inherited it. So I'm in favor of this, of course, and I just wanted to speak to you from an employer standpoint what benefits I see. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Can you repeat one more time? I didn't catch that, which organization you're from?
MHOG Sewer and Water Authority.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next person up is Mike Steffens. Mike, go ahead.
Good morning, Mike Stevens with Guardian Wastewater. Here mostly representing probably the small guy in the room, so privately owned public wastewater facilities. I applaud your efforts on this. I know this probably encompassed a great deal of time. I think one of the things that I wanted or noticed really quickly, I think we may have underestimated the impact or the small private facilities that might be affected by this regulation. So I did read the impact statement, which estimated only 5% of 600 municipalities would be affected or were indicated as privately owned. That would be 30 systems estimated. I can tell you that our company operates 33 systems. So I can tell you it's far greater than 30 systems that are privately owned public facilities. I think the operator training and certification, we had to, in the private industry, we had to step up when these privately owned facilities were reclassified as municipal facilities. So the municipal wastewater operator certification programs are very much geared towards full-time municipal operators. The 2,000 hours requirement to even exam for the system. So that was a great deterrent for private operations companies like ourselves to get municipal operator licenses to operate privately owned public facilities. So I'm glad to see that there aren't like those hour classifications in the collection system certifications that you're looking at. So that's good, but we had to step up and find a way to gather 6 years over multiple facilities to get the necessary 2,000 hours to test for those municipal examinations. I do want to comment. I think you could better clarify the term public. And that's very important for privately owned public facilities. You talk about public as being one or more persons, but then you also talk about public sewer systems and may or be one or more individually owned properties or individually owned facilities. You define public, but you use the word public in the definition. So I think there needs to be better clarity on defining public or publicly owned facilities. This would be very important for the privately owned facilities. The collection systems, I did notice many of the facilities that we operate would fall below that 50 connection limit. But there are some systems that would fall between 50 and 1,000. However, I noticed that you specifically exempted or omitted the language of low pressure sewer systems.
You got a minute, Mike.
1 minute, okay. And I'm curious as to why low pressure sewer systems was omitted and how those systems, low pressure sewer systems would be classified between 50 and 1,000 connections. It appears that they're in a no man's land. And then I do think that that plan review for Part 41 applications, since they're for public facilities, should be reviewed by professional engineers. If they're being submitted by professional engineers, plans are submitted by professional engineers, I think they should be. And that was the department's policy, I know, quite a long time ago. I would like to see that again. And then I do think we did find out recently that the policy or guidance regarding responsible charge of the day-to-day operation and maintenance, the department doesn't have any guidelines on that. So that has been determined to be fairly subjective based on the Eagle staff compliance person. So I would like to see more clarification into that. So thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Mike. Okay, I'm gonna grab, can you slide that mic down here?
Yes.
Okay, so now, does anybody else here want to make a comment in person? Okay, going online, Joel, does anybody have their hand raised online?
Raised or comments in the.
Okay, just a reminder, I'll leave it open for just another few seconds here. If anybody online would make a comment, you can click the raise hand icon on your Zoom toolbar. If you're on the phone, you can hit #2, or you can type your comment in the Q&A box and write the word comment on it. They always wait a minute because there is a little lag sometimes in Zoom, so. Is there any hands raised? Excuse me.
Has one hand raised.
Okay, we do have a hand raised. Name?
Brad Johnson.
Okay, Brad, we're gonna unmute your mic and you can go ahead and make your comment. Just a reminder to state your name, any affiliation, and you got 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Brad Johnson with Chalkley Township. I just wanted to thank the Eagle staff for putting this forward. This is going to be a great thing. I don't know if I said where I'm from. I'm with Chalkley Township up in the Upper Peninsula. This is going to be great for us up this way. It's going to open up a lot more opportunity for training and stuff like this for our staff. I think it's going to be very beneficial, and I'd like to thank you guys a lot for doing this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brad, for your comment today. Anyone else, Joel?
We have a comment in the box and it just says, please define operator.
Okay, so a comment came in, says, please define operator. Thank you. And that'll go in our record as well. Anything else online?
No, I do not have anything else at this time.
Okay. With that, then I will read our closing statement. Before I do that, I want to make sure I point out to those here and online the other ways to submit an official comment. You can do it via email by sending an email to egle-wrd-opcert, which is OPCERT @michigan.gov. You can also submit comments by mail. Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, Water Resources Division. Attention, Alyssa Sarver, 525 West Allegan Street, P.O. Box 30458, Lansing, Michigan, 48909. And the comment period after this public hearing will be open until 5:00 p.m. on April 30th, 2025. Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate that you have shown interest in these proposed rule revisions by taking the time to be here today, both in person and online. And as previously mentioned, the public comment period ends April 30th, 2025 at 5 p.m. If you have any questions regarding the proposed rules, please let me know, or you can come up here and visit our WRD staff once we're done. Also on the screen, for those that are online, I put Alyssa's contact information. I'll leave that up there for a minute. The hearing is now closed, and thank you again for being here. Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and close the online session. Thank you.